Psychedelics allow you to go into a very sacred spiritual journey that can sometimes feel like years upon years that you have been here, all in just a matter of a few short minutes to 8 hours, 10 hours at most. It is the most sacred, yet the most terrifying thing we can do because we are directly surrendering our control into the medicine and allowing something else to take us over and guide us. However, we must be cautious that the person going into this spiritual journey is not the one that comes out. In fact, when you fully experience death, you don't come out at all because death ultimately is not real. It is an illusion, a part of the illusion of birthing or beginning. During my own personal journey with psychedelics, I had an out-of-body experience and was brought to a void, the absence of anything yet the presence of everything. And I saw something similar to this picture here. Now, each of those little squares or rectangles were essentially a screen, just like a TV channel that I could tune into, and I was slowly moving through them, and through each one I was seeing a focal point in reality, which was essentially all people on Earth. And sometimes I would stop and look at one, and it was somebody's life happening the same way our life is happening right now. But then I could very easily move to another, or I could just step back and see all of them at once happening. And it was almost like I was plugged into a grid or seeing the grid, seeing reality for what it truly was. It took me months to process what I had experienced and to try and even bring it to words, because ultimately there is no word to represent the totality and the true essence of your being. But we as philosophers have fun trying to do so. So if I had to put it into words, I wasn't understanding what I was experiencing because I was trying to still understand it through the person who entered the journey as Tyler, which is my birth name. It wasn't until a few months after my experience that I was starting to realize that I had died in this journey. And essentially, Tyler wasn't coming out. Tyler didn't leave this place that I was at. It tuned me into the true reality of existence itself. Which means although I was back in this place, I knew I was still in that place, which was this place. The two became one. I knew more and more that I wasn't going into some medicine. The medicine was me the whole time. And what the medicine does is it assists you in removing these veils from yourself, which you safeguard and have put forth so much effort into creating. To fight to survive is a natural instinct, especially when we're under the full belief that this is who we are. It's naturally so that you will resist death, that you will fight to hold on just a little longer, which is why if you have seen, witnessed, or sat in on a psychedelic ceremony or journey, you see that resistance and fighting, crying are all normal and essential parts to an ego death, because the same way you mourn the loss of your loved ones, you mourn the loss of yourself, of who you think you were, who you believed you were. In my personal journey, again, I witnessed my whole family standing in a line from numerical order. And it was the oldest that disappeared into thin air to the youngest. And I watched my whole family essentially die by disappearing, dissolving into nothingness. And I shed so many tears because it felt like in a matter of 10 seconds, I lost my entire family. And I thought that this is what death was preparing me for. However, losing the loved ones, the people you hold most sacred to you, are simply veils keeping you holding on to yourself. And so the reason you lose your loved ones is because it's preparing you for that final parting of ways with you and yourself. You must take it serious, meaning you must lose yourself to find yourself. The tears are a natural consequence of you thinking and assuming that someone or something is actually being lost and shed. So death doesn't just come with one letting go. There is a mourning process, but the more you mourn, the more it allows you to let go. And the more you let go, the more you realize that you are not actually dying. And once you start to accept that you have died, you are brought to the greatest laugh with yourself, because Wait a minute, if I have died, what is still here reporting that Tyler has died? You remain as something which you do not recognize and something which cannot be known yet is undeniable. Once you shed the loss of the ego, you instantaneously embody every incarnation at one moment. Once you shed the loss of your position in space and time, you instantaneously embody every position in space and time. And that is why time is an illusion, because they say God is omnipresent. God is with you everywhere you go, always sees, because there is only one witness. And this is where the term, the all-seeing eye, comes in. There is only one true witness and one true light to what we're calling the universe. Psychedelics are essentially a point of no return because, again, you do not come out. When you fully face death once and for all, you can never fool yourself by believing in death again. You can never fool yourself into believing you will actually die again because you have seen behind the curtain to what death was the whole time, and the fact that what you believed you were never actually was. You are something so much more, so much greater, and so much more powerful than what you're admitting to yourself you are. And that's why man's greatest fear is himself beyond his own comprehension. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. This is why we as a society choose the comfort, choose the distractions, to further prolong us from the inevitable realization that we are not who we think we are. Each and every one of us are looking for ourselves in different forms of questions, different forms of answers, different forms of beliefs and stories. And this is where we become separate. However, the outcome is always the inevitably same conclusion that we are all one, which is the same with religions. They get separated through names, through deities, which we materialize. They get separate through the stories. However, they all unify through the inevitable realization, the light at the end of that tunnel, which tells us we are all one and the same, and there is only one light and one being here, which is ourselves without name and form. You still exist as the name and form. You will still respond in conversation to your name. However, to your core, you will not panic or tremble when it's time for this name and this appearance to fade back into the abyss and materialize into another, for you have seen yourself beyond and know there is no true name or form. Your last breath in death and your first breath in birth are one and the same, because you are not actually birthing nor dying. You are not coming or going. You are the all-seeing eye, which is the eternal witness to its own presence. The ego can only exist in one place and time as one name and one incarnation. But what psychedelics does is it overstimulates the brain, allowing you to break the barriers of this body and this boundary we call the earth, which is only a matrix, a screen to our own consciousness here. And that's why the pineal gland is the projector, and what you're calling the earth is only the screen to it, which we project ourselves onto. But to overstimulate the brain allows you to break these mental boundaries, which we have known and existed through our whole lives, at last seeing reality for what it is, and that we are all one and the same witness perceiving itself. In my personal journey, I was led through a hole, if you will, with this light at the end of the tunnel and a very deep voice behind it asking me as Tyler, "Are you sure you're ready to know God? Are you sure?" And I was persistently saying yes and yes, trying to move closer and closer, and the closer I moved to it, the further it moved away from me. And it kept asking me, "No, are you sure you want to know God, Tyler?" And I was saying yes and yes, and I repeated this probably 10 to 15 times, getting frustrated, until it asked me in a final moment, "This is your last chance. Are you sure you want to know God?" And I didn't realize that the price I was paying in knowing God was the death of Tyler. So once I admitted I wanted to know God and I was ready to surrender and let go, I broke through that light and instantaneously realized Tyler had died, Tyler was no more. And I was that voice this entire time. I was calling God, guiding Tyler into this journey, which is why you don't come out the same being, because you've seen yourself beyond the veil, beyond the light you once called God, which you assumed was separate from yourself.